Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our session on reviewing your custom pages in BiblioWeb. We're joined today by Kati Polodna, our implementations manager here at BiblioCommons, and Denise Macalino, our product designer, both pronouns she, her. My name is Jackie Miles, she, her, and I am a senior customer success manager here at BiblioCommons. Before we start the session, I want to remind you that you can chat and say hello to session attendees or ask questions to our presenters by using the chat panel on the right side of your screen. If you'd like, you can turn on a live transcript by clicking on the button located at the bottom of the video stream on the purple bar. The transcript of these sessions will also be available upon request. With all that said, I will hand things over to Kati and Denise to take it away.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This session is on reviewing custom pages in BiblioWeb. And I wanted to point out something that we have in the partner portal right away for y'all to use, which is the custom page checklist. So use ours. You can add things to it, to make it more customizable for your library, but it's going to help you design pages that are responsive, accessible, and beautiful. So I've kind of screenshotted what it looks like here. It's a little blurry. Sorry about that. But it does cover things like the best practices for setting up your rows, setting up your columns, making sure you're using the correct modules, configuring those properly. Headings, that's definitely a gotcha that Denise and I see a lot when we are looking at home pages and checking out libraries' other pages. So that covers best practices for that. And then just kind of some general page design gotchas that we often see, as well as accessibility, which I know is very top of mind for so many of our library partners right now. So it includes things like checking your color contrast. Do you have the correct H1s in place? Are your heading hierarchies correct? So with that being said, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have. We have tons, so y'all will get these slides after, but I do have a list of all of our partner libraries if you're ever looking for page inspiration. We like to use the Web Aim Contrast Checker. I also have linked one of our favorite developer tools that you can use to check for headings. And we have a bunch of new blogs that have been published pretty recently, like some of our favorite new library websites and some best practices for designing library websites and going beyond technical compliance. So we won't spend any time on those because Denise and I are going to do a little kind of live page audit for you with lots of the design gotchas that we see. So with that being said, I'm going to hop right over here to our training page that we built as an example. And right away, Denise, what do we see here?
So the first thing that I noticed just looking at this page is that we need to check for contrast compliance. You can see the books page is really hard to read on top of that pink color. So we'll usually use this tool called Web Aim to check if it's accessible or not.
Yep, and all you have to do is type in your hex colors, or if you haven't memorized, paste them in, and it's going to tell you the contrast ratio. So we can see that this one fails AA compliance, but if we look at the burgundy color, which we also had, that one does pass. So you just want to make sure that all of your colors are passing AA compliance. So we won't actually fix that part live, but we just wanted to cover that for y'all. Now, something else that I see on this page right away is some spacing issues. So Denise, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that you can see at the header and blogs about books, the spacing is quite tight and it feels a little bit squished. So we can look at the advanced row settings and see what we can do to fix that.
Let's see, what do you recommend we do? Should we set the bottom margin?
I think let's try 50.
50, 40? Yeah, I think both look good. Yeah, so one of the things that Denise and I often see is just content looking super crowded. So you want to make sure you have enough negative space. And that's good, Denise, for like ease of looking at the page. Are there other reasons why we want to make sure we don't have cramped pages?
Yeah, it's easier to scan because it makes it clear what sections are grouped with what. So it's just easier for patrons that way as well.
Nice. Now, something that I see a lot that I've already kind of alluded to is duplicated headings and issues with headings. So down here in this next row, we have a heading called Blogs About Books, and we have a module called Book Blogs. So these are very repetitive.
We don't want to duplicate those because we already have that branded heading, and we want to show that and hide the module heading, which will be in H2.
Yep, so you just go into the settings, you uncheck show visually, And Denise, we want to uncheck available to screen readers because
It's going to be redundant because it'll read it twice for users of assistive technologies.
Yep, and I've pulled up the document outline so you can see how redundant this ends up being. We've got that branded heading here, and then we have the module heading here. So a screen reader would read, oh my goodness, a screen reader would read blogs about books, book blogs, super repetitive, not a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's click save. So we've fixed that gotcha for us. Now, something else that we'll see too is just sometimes the wrong content is appearing. So this is supposed to be blogs about books, but we have staff list showing here instead.
So in this instance, you want to make sure that the feed filters are set up correctly. So I think here we can remove staff list and then let's apply blogs instead because it's blogs about books.
Much better. That's what we want here.
So
now, what about taxonomy terms, Denise?
Yeah, I think another thing that libraries want to consider is when to display their taxonomy terms. And because we already have a heading suggesting that this content is about blogs, we could choose maybe not to display the content type, because again, that might be repetitive, and maybe check something else instead that would increase discovery.
Yeah, so you just go to the display tab. Here's where you can see all of the taxonomy links. So I've unchecked content type. And then when you're thinking about taxonomy terms, this is a good example page because it's books. Books is super broad, tons of genres, tons of topics. So if we turn on those taxonomy terms, gives people the opportunity to explore other content. So even if they're maybe not interested in fall books for kids, they could be interested in horror, or maybe they don't care about literary houses, but classics is their jam. All right, now let's see what else we can adjust on this page. Let's see, our staff picks is set up correctly. So we got staff picks and we got our staff picks there. So we could probably turn off the display type on this one too, so it's not repetitive. Oh no, oh yes, we can. Let's see, where does that one live here? That's okay, we won't do it for now. So Denise, something else that we talk a lot about is pages looking kind of cluttered with the amount of content visible. Now this one looks cluttered to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that it looks like there's a lot of blogs to choose, or sorry, items to choose from, and that could feel a bit overwhelming. So we could reduce the number of cards showing.
I think so too. Let's try 3 instead. Yeah, I think that looks a little nicer there. Perfect. So those are some things that we see right away. Let's keep going on our page to our next section. And I know you see something right away, Denise. What should we fix here?
Yeah, so the first thing I notice is the text sign up for a library card, etc. That is in all caps. And because it's quite a long sentence, it makes it inaccessible. So we want to change that so that it's lowercase.
So to change it, you just go into the style setting, click on the drop down for font, then choose style and spacing. And here's where you can click on transform to make it sentence case instead. So that way it's much more easy for people to read. Now there's something else, Denise. We have a duplicate heading, or we don't have a duplicate heading. We have an H1 that shouldn't be here.
Yes, there should only be one H1 on a page. So I would say we can change this one to an H2 instead.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, and then again, we just use this document outline tool. So again, we should only have one H1 on the page. This becomes an H2. All right, now something else I think we could improve are the single buttons that take up a lot of space here.
Yeah, I think a good option here would be to instead use the link group module, because this will allow us to control the multiple buttons or links in a single place. And we also don't want to use what we call ghost buttons here, where it's just the outline and then the text in no solid color, because that should be used only for secondary items.
I see my link group, a module did not want to load. Save, there we go. Yep, yeah, so we want to avoid these ghost buttons because they end up being that kind of secondary call for action. So we've replaced it here with a link group. So let me just delete all of these extra buttons here. Much better. Oh, there it added. The joys of live demoing, friends. Don't we love it? Now, what else can we improve here? I see we've got, a photo, we've got a heading, we've got some text. Is there a better way for us to think about organizing information on this page?
Yeah, I think that here a better way maybe to display this information would be to use an existing module. So I'm thinking the horizontal card instead of what we have here, which is the photo module, text module, because it just looks a bit messy.
It does look messy, but luckily I've got a horizontal card for us to use. So I've gone ahead and created a custom card, forget a library card. It's got the same text as was on the page, but now one of the benefits of using a card is
it spans the whole width of the screen and it just looks a lot more organized.
Yes, it does. And it's going to look better on mobile and tablet.
Yes.
Okay, let's delete all of these extra columns. That looks much nicer. Now let's keep looking at this page. We've got these featured book resources here.
So I noticed that, yeah, if you hover over them, they're all single cards, which I don't think is the ideal way to be showing these.
I agree.
That maybe we can replace it with a card collection instead, because that will also improve the accessibility of the page.
And I think too, I see this a lot with libraries who want the ability to manually place cards on their page. So they end up using the single card collection because they're like, okay, this card will be this card will be that. But we can still do that with the card collection. Let's see, I think I saved myself. No, I didn't. We'll just build it real quick. So we'll do a card collection here, give it our heading name. So we can just call it featured book resources. We don't want to make this one visually shown because we've, got our heading there. So right away, cards start to be pulled in. And let's add some taxonomy terms. What do you think, Denise? Online resource?
Resource, maybe
book format.
books.
Match the page. Yep. And then if you wanted to manually set cards, so let's say you wanted this first card to be Oxford English Dictionary, you could come up here to the manual selections, click on Edit Card, choose your card type. There it is, Oxford English Dictionary. And then down here you have that scheduling option. So if you want to make sure your cards are timely or they're relevant to whatever's happening on your page, you can schedule these cards to go up and go down. So we'll just click on save, and the Oxford English Dictionary card is going to go here in that first slot there. I got to move my separator. It's going to bug me. There we go.
Yeah, this is much better. And it also means that a screen reader would read the heading featured book and then not read all the individual cards instead, which it would have with the other option.
Yes, so the other option was set up like this. So we had our heading here, and then each single card had its own module heading, and then it just read the card title. So now it's going to read as featured book resource and then the H3s, Oxford English Dictionary and so on. So yeah, much better for screen readers and for accessibility. Now we've got this nice coming soon section. So what do you think about this, Denise, with these catalog carousels?
I think that we have the same issue that we had before, and that's that there's a heading that's been manually added, and then again, it would be repetitive when the module heading is also visible.
Perfect. So we'll delete that, but I think there's another improvement we can actually still make here.
Yeah, so you're seeing right now all the new books at the library, but just different formats. And I think in this instance, probably a tabbed catalog carousel would make a lot more sense and also save us some space.
I agree. Now, this one I did build us ahead of time. So we're going to drop in a tabbed catalog carousel instead. And I like this idea, right? Because you're saying, these are just the different format types. This is going to make sense. Mm-hmm. But maybe a use case for some separate catalog carousels would be, maybe you're going to do a books page that's like, here's your romance books. And then the different formats could be each of those tabbed catalog carousels and so on and so forth. Okay, let's delete these. So those are some of the gotchas we see on general pages with desktop, but we're also going to look at mobile and tablet design. So let's start with mobile. So to get to the responsive editor, you can press R on your keyboard, or you can click on the drop down here and go to the responsive editor. So we're going to start with mobile. Now, what's the first thing we see right away? Pretty obvious.
As you can see, the heading takes up pretty much the whole screen, which we don't want. So that means the font is just too large for smaller devices. So what we can do here is duplicate that module and then change the breakpoint visibility so that it's only for large devices, and then create a separate one for smaller devices.
Perfect. So let's try, what do you think a good font size is for this one?
What is it now? Let's try
like 50?
Yeah, 50 to start.
50 looks good.
Yeah.
50 looks good. And then I'm just going to go into the advanced tab and set that breakpoint to our small devices. And then I click on save. So definitely when you are designing your pages, when you do use those branded headings, you change the size, make sure they look good on your different breakpoints. Okay, now let's look at the rest of this on mobile.
Yeah, just one thing to note is that when you're in the responsive view, the modules might look a bit wonky, but that's because we're just in the editor and it should not appear like that on an actual screen. So just keep it in mind when you're editing.
Yeah, these will all look correct once we actually make this page go live. Now let's tackle tablet. So actually, here's a little gotcha that we just did. I am going to click exit, and I'm going to make this first module visible to medium and large devices so we can take a peek at that. So something else as you're doing these pages, make sure you don't accidentally hide modules that you need on existing or on different viewpoints. Okay, so here's tablet. This also looks kind of big, doesn't it?
Yes, I think, what is it now? Let's try to set it to a little bit smaller.
Yeah, I agree. So now I am actually going to go into the advanced settings and set this one to large so we can adjust the view on medium. Let's see, we've got it at 150. That's just too big.
Let's try 100 and see how that looks.
That looks much nicer.
Much better.
Much better. Okay, so on mobile, everything kind of stacked super nicely, but tablet's always been a little tricky. So Denise, do you have some kind of pro tips on how to think about tablets, like that grid idea?
Yeah, so I think when we're designing, we're usually using a grid system, and it breaks up the page evenly so that it makes it easier when we go into responsive mode and things start to stack. So for example, if you have something set to 65% and then the other part of the page is 35%, it might stack awkwardly, and it's better to do 50-50 or just 100 and just think about that even number grid and how everything's going to stack on top.
Perfect. Well, then let's set this column to 50% and see what that looks like. I think we'll go 100.
Yeah, I think yes, that looks much better.
100 looks better. And now we got to fix this one because now this one doesn't look great on tablet. So we'll set this to 100 as well.
Awesome. Yes.
Much better. Yeah. And that are some of the gotchas that we see. So yeah, we wanted to save some time for questions if anybody has any. So we're happy to answer them.
I don't see any questions yet in the chat. Does anybody have anything that they want to ask Kati while she's here? It's pretty remarkable to watch her do her work when she's going.
Well, props to Denise, who's also been teaching me cool things as I go, like the grid for tablet. You learn something new every day. Well, I guess I'll point this out too while we're just kind of wrapping up. So one of the things that you just want to, don't worry about is, we have made 3 different modules for the heading, and you'll see them on the back end, but patrons aren't going to see all 3 of these. They're only going to see the one that is actually sized for their device. So for example, if I go to preview layout, and I click on mobile. Now you're just going to see the mobile version. You don't see all three. So that's a gotcha too sometimes that catches libraries. So yeah, that's about it.
I'm just curious, Katie, when you were running a site using BiblioWeb, what do you, knowing what you know now, is there anything you used to do that kind of makes you cringe?
Yeah, I used to screw up my headings all the time. And it was really stressful for me. So the thing with the headings is, if you can think back to like in high school when you had to learn how to take those notes, and it was like the Roman numeral 1, and then you had like the A as like the subheading. That's what finally helped me understand how headings are meant to be organized. Because yeah, I used to mess these up all the time. The other thing that used to catch us too is when we would publish a page and we'd added this manual heading, and I'd go to edit page. If we had manually added this heading, a lot of times we had forgotten to uncheck this checkbox. So you'll see right now in the document outline, we do have a duplicated H1. And a lot of times it's because libraries forget to uncheck this because they've manually added the heading. So all of these gotchas I've done myself multiple times.
That is a really great tip. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. So we'll wrap up this session for now. Thank you so much, Katie and Denise. We really enjoyed watching you today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.